So, welcome, dear friends, and we would like to start this beautiful month. Hello, and welcome, dear friends, and we would love to start this beautiful month of June here at the SSB with our dear friend Marcia Trajano. Thank you, Marcia, for being with us again and sharing this moment with us. And it's a beautiful topic, right, that we will be discussing today, entitled Recovering Our Identity. But before I pass the word to you, because I'm excited to hear, I would like to formally introduce our dear friend. Marcia Trajano is the president and one of the founders of the Solitude Center for Spiritual Living. She's also one of the co founders of the Christian Spiritist Community of Atlanta and the former board member of the U.S. Spiritist Federation. She is a spiritist for more than 25 years and has participated in giving talks and leading study groups in English and Portuguese. With a master's degree in management of technology, Marcia currently works in the healthcare industry, and we are also adding to this that is a huge friend. It's one of those individuals when that you have an issue, have a problem, she cheers you up, she puts you up there. She always questions as well, it's like, why this feeling, why this thought? So this is on a personal note as well, right, Marcia? The conversations that we have and the much knowledge that she has as well about spiritism and in life in general. So thank you again for being here with us. We will be giving the space for about an hour or so, and then we'll open up for questions or comment that we may have from the web as well as from us here at the SSB. The floor is yours, and Marcia will be speaking about recovering our identity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you. Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
And I hear an echo, so I'm not sure if it's me. Um, but anyways, I'd love if you could put the slides, if it's okay. And I wanted to just say thank you. Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to be here to discuss this topic found in Joanna D'Angeli's book, The Integral Human Being. My name is Marcia Trajano, and I am a student of Joanna D'Angelo. So it's very good to hear before we came to start the discussion in earnest, to hear her passage on passage 74 of Happy Life. So very, very connected with what we're going to talk today. I'm especially interested in my studies of Joanna D'Angelis in the psychology series, or the psychology collection, as it is also known. It is a 16-book series and written by our amazing spiritual author Joanna D'Angelis in a very close collaboration with Divaldo Pereira Franco. And it is quite significant, quite important to us all to understand that the value of this particular talk, which is comes from that book, which is part of a series. What is this all about? Well, the importance is the fact that Joanna de Angelis created this bridge between spiritism and depth psychology. And if you are a student of psychology, you would know that Freud kicked it off, Jung went further, but he stayed right there. And Joanna de Angelis just really catapults that idea of contained spiritism to offer a better understanding of depth psychology. But anyways, with some of the concepts that she brings to us, she offers clarity. She offers even root cause of why do we feel this way, and brings us in many cases some therapies so that we can confront those issues that you and I, everybody faces. And I like to think about we, you and I, humanity as a whole. We are so vulnerable, right? And it is in this moment that we're all in where we are today, we are undergoing a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. So it is good to understand that as we spend our next minutes together, to delve into this idea of identity, and recovering it, or making sure that we embrace who we are, our identity, so that we can ascertain through the identity a sense of balance, a sense of stability, emotional and psychological maturity, despite everything else that goes around. Right? There's so much going on, and it's like let's be stable. Let's stay connected. Let's stay peaceful. But for your reference, and this is an invitation for all of us here to familiarize ourselves with this book that I find it fascinating, The Integral Human Being, which is the second of the 16 book in that series. But and I only have those slides just to make sure that I don't get lost in this discussion. And wanted to just talk about here the sense of pretense, right? The question that we really must ask ourselves is, how do all of us ensure the sense of self in the middle of everything that's going on? And I'm going to talk about our life struggles, right? All of our responsibilities, our worries, our concerns, our disappointments, all of it that makes life on earth life. Those concerns really, they reflect our society, and this society that we're inserted. And I can only speak of Western society. So when I talk about society, let's think about it is Western society, and we live in the US. So it is a very specific area that reflects a state of well-being, financial as a first world, and reflects a number of additional cultural elements, right? So we inserted in this Western civilization, first world. It is indeed a capitalist, consumerist, individualistic society or community. And because of it, it promotes extroversion. Yeah. And it promotes herd mentality. So we're not going to talk about social media, but you know what I mean. The question here is, do you agree with the statement that we are here really promoting a certain type? And Joanna brings to us this notion that without psychological maturity, we really find ourselves in a place that is challenging. At a minimum, at the lowest level, it is challenging. It can get to be a point much worse than that. But according to her, our identity is our real individuality, and as such, it is our true architect of our lives. I have an architecture degree from my education, so I love that she says that as a true architect of lives, our identity, our individuality designs, right, plans and executes based on that plan. Joanna D'Angelo also tells us that this sense of identity is the sole driver as well as the sole beneficiary of everything we do and all of our accomplishments. So the question that I pose to myself and I share with you is, can we have the cake and eat it too? Ah, can we maintain our sense of individuality, one hand, right? On the other hand, belong to a social group. And that social group can be anything. It can be your soccer club, it can be your spiritual center, it can be a number of different elements that unites us together with our affinities, our interests, our aspirations, right? Our shared experience. Can we have both? Well, as I put in the slide, and I'll read to you a quote from from Joanna in this book, she says to us that psychological immaturity leads human beings to annul their own identity as a result of their fearing the aggressive characteristics of the struggles in the world and in life. So she's really bringing to us the idea that we must be psychologically mature. We must also really protect our sense of self, our identity, right? But there's a book, it's a psychology book written about 10 years ago in 2013 by Kane. And Kane the title of the book in itself is what I want to bring to us, but it's called Quiet, the Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking, and that foretells the challenges of an introvert. So Kane brings the idea that oh yes, we like to talk. We cannot stop talking, providing your opinions, and creating everything that the mess that we're in because we want to be heard, right? But if I go back 10 years ago, yeah, I put another 90 years, about 100 years ago in 1921, Jung popularized that term that we're referring here, introvert and extrovert. And he brings those two as the two central building blocks of our personality. And of course, it's good to understand that Carl Gustav Jung, was an introvert, and he really referenced his preference to be himself by himself, to really go inside and inhabit the inner world of thoughts, ideas, and feelings. But, right, so that's a point. And the counterpoint is we are, all of us know, we are biosocial animals, and as such, we as extroverts, as not Jung, but the rest of us extroverts, we crave attention. We crave external validation. We crave this living in the world of people, of activities, of a sense of belonging. And it's important for us to know because even though they're, in this case, introverts and extroverts, and we could think about the 50-50. Well, the fact is that extroversion is we're talking about Western society, right? It is our cultural ideal. And in that book, Kane highlights how society whew, idolizes the talkers, the risk takers. And I can even real quickly, this is just a small parenthetical idea here, but I remember my becoming, a professional in this society, coming from another country. I i remember, oh my goodness, I really fail at small talk and the chit chat that when we all get together, let's say in a meeting or a large opportunity, large gathering, where the conversation of the day is about the weather, how your football club or football season is doing, and I'm like, I'm completely out of it, and I had to understand that for me to be successful, I needed to get a sense of skills in that area. That's the society that we live, right? This idolizing the talkers as well as those that are risk takers, the adrenaline junkies. They are not only popularized, but they are the so-called the superheroes of our generations. The question here is that the stereotype of that extrovert, right, is, oh, quick thinker. The extrovert is charismatic. As I mentioned before, risk taker. They prefer, and I'm saying us, right, because I am an extrovert, but they prefer action versus contemplation. So if we think maybe from that cultural lens, extroversion is really appealing. And the question here is, have we created an expectation, societal expectation, that is indeed oppressive and perhaps even attainable to some of us? How do we even get here? And I'd like to just for just a minute talk about how did we get to this point that to be an introvert, which is a personality function, right? We are so ineffective in belonging to this society, this Western society. How did we how did we do this? Well, let's just imagine the shift in our society, right? From a culture of character to a culture of personality. And we shifted from the ideal self of, oh, right, the studios, the serious, the discipline, the honorable, all of those very, the characteristic of somebody. And those two people that come to my mind are, yes, Allan Kardec and Leon Denis, right? They represent that discipline, that student, that person that is very serious. And we come now to a culture, right? The ideal in our culture today that is of a celebrity status, and it's really Andy Warhol in the 60s predicted, right? The 15 minutes of fame that we all crave. And it's important for us to just to think about it, because some attribute the cultural shift to perhaps the, historically speaking, the transformation from an agricultural society, right, to an urbanized society. And unlike not my parents, but my parents' parents and beyond, we are now raised to, yes, we have to go to school and we have to succeed. We have to have a certain level of education. We have to compete, fiercely compete, in my case, in this professional setting. To work in that environment is an environment of meeting those strangers, yes, chit chat and all that we may have mastered, but it's really, that's the environment that we live in today. We are competing every day, not only for our employment, but to outshine everyone else so that we can survive another wave of letting people go, right? Yes, this is happening to me in the company that I work for. Forgive me for projecting here. But how can we fit in this new society? How do we perhaps ensure, for example, I am of the right first impression, right? How do I show up? How do I even, quote unquote, sell myself? And this culture of personality urges to develop some sort of a mask, this persona, if we are not that. But if you're introverted, we want to become or to pretend to be what we're not. But it's really this urgency to be the best, to show up better, to outshine everyone else. So back to Joanna, right? Because she now pays a picture of, okay, Mercy, you talked about it. Society has become a society of that really prefers extroverted, right? Those are the easier to grow and to reach fame, acclaim, reputation, whatever. But what about the other, right? The introverts. And the introverts among us, and I'm going to include myself into that, right? For your information, with the Myers Briggs, I am borderline introvert, extrovert, so a little bit of both. But the introvert among us, we are, yes, sidelined, right? And often we are pushed to feel and even deal with the sense that we are not good enough, and we may develop that inferiority complex. We introverts have two choices. We can either distance ourselves from the larger social group that I crave and I want to belong, but I can't. So I isolate myself, or which is one, or two, we submit to whatever I need to do to be part of, to belong. And the issue with this choice is that neither option is a safe one, right? Both leads us will lead us to a life of inauthenticity. We allow ourselves, for example, to to be in the receiving end of what others say is good, right? That their values are imposed on us. We may have our fears, but we disguise them, we hide them. We we hide actually who we truly are. We take on new personas. We use those masks. There, I'm putting my hand in front of my face, right? The mask that helps us, protects us, be what we're not. And we copy. We copy the so-called successful, and I'm going to say air quotes again, role models, right? Not all of them are role models, but we start to identify who is that person that exemplifies the characteristics of that group that I want to belong, and I start to behave and copy their behaviors. And those copycat behaviors may even extend. Unfortunately, I laugh because it's really laughable at this point because it's really endemic in our society. But we copy their gestures, their mannerism, their clothing, the ideology, right? We try as we may to become them. So for us who, for whatever reason, assumes behaviors to belong, we will suffer. We will suffer because at some point, those same behaviors that we're trying so hard to emulate, they too become obsolete. You know this. Every season, there is a new fad, a new behavior. Every so many cycle of whatever is the attention of the day, they get old, they become passe, right? They become obsolete. And with the obsolescence of whatever it is that we are inauthentically trying to be, we too belong no longer acceptable. And it is terrible. It is sad to me because we begin this cycle in the beginning searching for ways to belong, right? And we end up creating conflicts with ourselves due to living life at a very superficial level and potentially having to adapt again and again to the next acceptable set of behaviors. So I just wanted to say I think it's too old for all of you, but I still remember that it was early 80s, 1983. Woody Allen wrote, starred, and directed the movie Zelig. It's actually now that because of it, it became so interesting and significant that there is a Zelig complex, and it's a satirical documentary. It's a mockumentary, as they call, about this fictitious man, Leonard Zelig, who, out of his desire to belong and be liked, he keeps taking on characteristics of anyone that has a strong personality around him. And I think, yes, Woody Allen, you were onto something because we're talking about exactly that today, so many years later, right? But let's think about when we relinquish our authentic self, we are also relinquishing who we are. We are suffocating the brilliant gem of who we are in our identity. And when we do this, we are not well. We really start to live a life of lies, of deception, right? We're not open or truthful. And that life, if everything else is okay, that life is at a minimum very superficial, skin deep, right? It's just really superficial because we are unable to go deep inside of us because, outside of the mask, there's nothing there. And because of it, we actually become very vulnerable, even more so than when we started this journey of wanting to belong, because we embrace this life that is challenging to all of us, but we embrace a life that is challenging without a true north, without a true identity, without a true partner. So it is with that Joanna De Angelis is quite stern. She's quite strong in her statement that psychologically speaking, we are mutilating ourselves, our commitments, and our friendships. Wow, it's quite harsh, Miss DeAngelis. Mutilating ourselves, our commitments, and our friendships. She even gives this glimpse that we become, when we do that, faceless. We become psychologically speaking, fragmented, and we live a life focusing now on maintaining the pretense of what we're not. So, I have another slide. Doesn't matter if we put it or not. It's just to give a sense of let me push, which is the. Oh, I think I went too far. Sorry. This is it. This is it. I think you can let the slide go because I don't know if it's in the right order. It's okay. What I want to talk about is that each human being is the sum of, those are words by John D'Angelo. Right? Each human being is the sum of their own experiences. And those experiences are really a reflection of the cultural, social, intellectual, moral, and religious ones. Okay. So if that's the case, if we reflect for just a second about your own history, the sum of all the experiences, and now we start to see that as much as we belong together, right? That we know who we are, we really end up very different from each other. Let's put that aside because I want to talk here about the notion of an archetype, right? In my mind, archetype is a symbol, right? A symbol. It's something that I can understand very quickly. I don't have to think much about it. And it is something that has been somehow integrated, ingrained, solidified in my mind, but also the mind of everyone, right? No matter what background I have, we all understand this archetype. And for example, just to have a sense for those who have not really spent any time thinking about it. But for example, in literary criticism, right, the archetypes are the images, the figures, the character types, the settings, and even the story patterns. And Carl Gustav Jung says those are universally shared by people across culture. I don't have time to talk about Joseph Campbell, but I this man is amazing because he brought to us the archetype of the hero, right? And it's like, yes, once we understand that, we recognize that, we see that hero archetype in every story, right? From David here in Goliath to any other story in the movie that you just saw, etc., etc. So it's really strong that. And an example completely away from Joseph Campbell, but maybe closer to us, especially if you have kids, right? It is how Disney uses archetypes for their stories. And his classic films, for example, they drew archetypal characters. For example, you never ever doubt the motivation of, for those who watch, Cruella de Vil in 101 Dalmatians, right? And I'm not going to talk about how some of those Disney archetypes reinforce some associations that are potentially negative to us, like if you're beautiful, you're good, if you're ugly, you're bad, etc. We're not going to go into that, but he too, like storytellers of all areas and eras, they use archetype. But I digress. Let's go back to Jung. Jung, according to him, archetypes are actually embedded deep in humanity's collective unconscious. I don't know if you are keen on the difference between Freud and Jung, right? But Freud introduced genius. He introduced the personal unconscious, right? So it's your life, one incarnation, and we all have a warehouse of everything that it's here, but we are not consciously aware. And Jung goes further to talk about the idea of a collective unconscious, right? And it's really amazing. And Joanna DeAngelis talks, references Jung a lot because as she brings, as all of us spiritists, we start to discuss things from the immortal soul perspective, that collective unconscious really resonates to all of us. But back to Jung again, right? He talks about that those archetypes are embedded in our collective unconscious. And why am I talking about archetype and collective unconscious? Because Jung talks about that they involve memories of situations, events, and relations that have been part of the human experience from its own beginning. And Joanna, right, she hears that, is like, yes, Jung, I hear you. So she comes on and she puts a wrinkle into the idea of archetype because she now states, yes, everything that happened in the history of mankind starts to be part of this enormous unconscious that we all share, right? But she brings to us the idea that our archetypes are characterized by our own sociability and are identical to no one else. Oh, oh, Joanna, how do I unpack that? Well, we can break it down further because when Joanna says that, and she says that brilliantly, is because she's bringing to us the idea that our identity, I said that before, right? Our identity is our real individuality, which is our true architect of our lives, which is the sole driver and the sole beneficiary of our actions and accomplishment. I said it all before. And but she says that because she's reminding us of our own immortality, right? As immortal spirits, yes, we do need to feel we belong to a larger social group, right? But she says, okay, think about it. This is me thinking of Joanna talking to us now, right? So she would say, think about it. We're biosocial animals. We need to belong to this larger group of affinities, etc. But whatever it is, and you can think of yourself what those social groups that you belong today. And she says, right, in the social group, eh, there will be a multifaceted kaleidoscope of individualities within the social group, with the same types of aspirations, of interest, and shared experiences. Ah, so there's difference in the collective, right? So it is interesting to understand that and really expect that now not only we have differences within the collective, we also within that microcosm of a collective, so a collective within the larger collective, there will be the emergence of some individualities that will take their leadership role. Got it? Yeah, I think we can understand that. But if we start now, keep thinking about our, the group behaviors that we belong, perhaps we can start to imagine that the majority is the result of biotypes of, this is Joanna, everyone, not me, right? Biotypes of equivalent levels. What? Yes, biotypes of equivalent levels. So they're not identical, but they're average individual with similar accomplishments. I see this is my mind's eye. I see this as that kaleidoscope of individualities that you see in kindergarten, right? It's regardless of those individualities and even the subgroups within the school of those school kids that have similar likes and dislikes, right? They are at the same level of maturity, and I really like that because now we start talking of level upon level upon level of understanding of those archetypes, the individualities, and still our need to belong, even though we're different. And that's where we, it's the crux of it all, right? And if I may, I would like to take a moment and your permission to share a personal note here. My job, my organization has recently, about a month or so, has been absorbed. So it was, let's say, not this, but let's pretend for the sake of numbers, let's pretend it was 10, right, in a thousand, but an organization of 10 that was absorbed by an organization of 100, right? Level within levels. And I have been witnessed and experienced firsthand this phenomenon around the personalities of those 10, what was then and what is now 1 month later, right? What is the new norm that we, unconsciously speaking, are trying to hold on because what is expected now is different than what was up until a month ago. And it's just very interesting because if I think to myself, reflect upon what's occurring, and 15 years working for the same company, moving from organization to organization, about every 3 years or so, I moved to a different organization. Nothing new to me. Yet it feels this time, because it's not me moving from here to there, it is the same group of people now becoming part of a larger group, that I have to relearn not only about myself, but this group of 10 and the group of 100, again, to be able to be accepted. It's very interesting in light of this discussion that we have here. If we think about life, not much unlike this organization or any other, we can see how similar those experiences can be, right? Let's think now, not just my life, your life, but the reincarnation process, where some of us will begin a new physical existence under perhaps some specially conflicting situation, which we must confront without avoiding what is the overall objective to which life itself came to me, which is life's destiny for us, right? So while, and I'm going to put myself as an example, right? While I am independent of, as a reincarnating spirit, while I am independent of a new reality to which I am inserted, we're all in this together. We are all different, but we're all together. And there's some of us, no matter what you are, what social groups you belong to, there's some of us that will be better or will be worse, right? As individuals, as learners, as professionals, as parents, you take a role, take a pick of any role. There will be better parents than you are, right? Better children than you were, better learners than you were, perhaps. So there's always better and worse than you. And there are those that are just gifted, and as gifted they may also have a access to I don't know, power, values, titles, etc., etc. We cannot ever forget that we come here as immortal spirits, that we are in a new reincarnation in its own process, that we all have access to the exactly right tools to fulfill our goals, right? And those goals are what? Growth, education, achievements, uh, all the achievements for us to grow as an immortal spirit. So my emotional duty then is to embrace my own identity, and that is the goal, to know myself and perhaps let myself be known. I must stop hiding my fears, my limitations, my sense of inadequacy to a new group. I have to stop hiding what I have not yet accomplished. And this is an imperative for me to be accepted in a new organization, yes, and in a new life alike. Very similar imperatives. So we all must commit to, in order to achieve health, well being, peace, right? That all will lead to that emotional maturity we all need. We need to open ourselves to who we are. Introverts, extroverts, new job, old job, it doesn't matter the circumstances. This is really critical. But I had that slide. My apologies that it's out of order, with a sailboat. If you want to put there now, just so we can have a visual reference, right? And to me, I'm going to paraphrase, not paraphrase. I'm going to read a sentence from Joan Dienge when she says this: "To be adventurous in the constructive and meaningful sense of the world is to stimulate values, review inner contents, and propose new experiences." So sailing to me is the ultimate um, archetype, right? The vision, that the symbol to me of adventure. You can delete that from the screen, but thank you. But the question is, are we adventurous as this image of someone sailing away toward the sunset? Well, you may be, but the evidence says that we're not there yet. It's terrible because, there's an estimated 4% of the global population, which is 312 million people, and 19% of the US adult population currently experiencing some level of anxiety and anxiety disorder, which puts us face to face with one of the most common mental disorder out there, right? So It's with a pain in my heart that we bring this to our discussion here, because the anxiety and uncertainty that originate from that idea that I have a goal and I have to review our inner content, according to Joanna, right? And this is all part of my individual project toward a future. It counters the need for psychological stability. It counters to the need um, to face the ocean in the sunset, the adventure, the uncertainty, right? And our own authentic content. And when we have that, when we are able to be who we are, authentically so, we will achieve a stable, successful, and a happy life, right? So let us never forget that failures, concerns, worries, all of that, yeah, it's part of life. It's inevitable. Those concerns, those failing, in by the way, or in a different book, Joanna DeAngelis says the just as a by the way, there the three biggest fears that we human beings have is number one, fear of dying. Number two is fear of being rejected. And number three is the fear of failing. And I'm saying to you, we all will die, but we don't die because we have one life with many deaths. So that's good, right? And the third fear, which is the fear of failure, it happens over and over and over again. It is a part of the mechanism for us to grow and to learn. So let us never forget that those are inevitable, and they are here to provide us with a sense of perspective. And that perspective is really all about what does it mean to be able to fight for something, for a goal, to compete, to be alive. And all of it, it's all about to have our own identity. So it is truly our greatest duty to be able to confront ourselves, right? To have the courage to uncover our own identity, all of it, right? And to be able to accept who we are, to accept the good, the bad, and the ugly, to accept all of our conscious self, our public image, but also those aspects of our identity that we hide close to our chest, right? And those areas that we're not even aware that is repressed in our shadows. It is really our duty to be open, to go through this self discovery, because that's what we need. But the question here, and almost as a different topic of discussion, is acceptance, right? I must learn who I am. I must really confront who I am, and I must accept who I am. And what is acceptance? Well, the opposite of acceptance is avoidance, and we do that so well. We avoid knowing who we are. So psychological acceptance refers to the process of embracing, welcoming our thoughts, our emotions, and all that goes inside of us, our internal experience, without judgment and without trying to change them. This is in the slide. And if we think about it, acceptance is a critical part of the process of achieving that inner maturity that we talked earlier on. This process includes really creating space, right? Providing room for all of our experience that we have lived through to surface. And as it surfaces into our consciousness, they become part of who we are in our identity. So once those surface and we embrace them, once all of that takes place, we are now able to reference them, right? In our journey of inner transformation, a journey of self discovery. We are able to look at them with respect, with wisdom, and and it really know that those experiences catapult us to grow faster and faster. It's an accelerated, right? If we think back, perhaps, as of first of the year of 2024, the world's population is a little bit over 8 billion people. 8 billion different people with different tendencies to different likings and dislikes and ideals. 8 billion people with very diverse psychological structures. So, for us to really achieve this balance that is required to have a healthy, vibrant social life, now we talk not only about ourselves, but how am I in regards to the diversity that exists to accept this enormous number of different people with all colors and textures and ideals that come close to me. Are we doing that? Are we accepting not only who we are, but all those who are not me? So it's really really important because indeed those differences are that kaleidoscope that Joanna talked about, right? This individuality that is so multifaceted, so it has so many different colors and textures, and if we think about it, they enrich the tapestry that life is. So let us all commit to acceptance. Let us all help one another to do the same. Let us know that by doing that, we form this bond in which we are collaborating toward the collective progress of humanity. But it's quite awesome if you think about it, to realize their own identity is unique and special. Our identity supports our own inner well being exactly because it prevents us from falling for those psychological avoidance coping mechanisms. So if we're not ready to embrace and accept who we are now, okay, hold yourselves together, maybe sit down if you're not, because if we don't do it, we will instead, time and time again, try to run away from our reality, and we will, yes, all become neurotic. We will all suffer, and we will, in the end, transfer all those fears into our consciousness in the form of anxiety and threats. We will have our mental world populated with ideas, fixations, right? A mono idealism, and even ghosts of something out there that we cannot dissipate. So it is up to all of us to decide to take on the journey of acceptance, who we are, and recover our identity or not. I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for being here with me today. And I just say this is my invitation to all of us, me included, to accept our own identity without any sense of dissimulation. Because when we do that, we will be able to manifest life within our own identity. Thank you so very much.
Can you turn on the light, please? Thank you so much for this beautiful reminder, right? And I loved what you just mentioned in terms of, recognize who we are, right? Or accept to a degree that we know that it is what has brought us thus far, right? To
Yes.
where we are right now. So this is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful reminder. I do have a couple questions, but I would like to open up first foremost for our friends here, if you have a question or comment, and Daniel will be letting us know that if we have a couple from the web as well. Before we jump to the web and discuss their questions, I have our dear friend Wendell will be asking the first question.
Hi, Marcia. Thank you so much for sharing such beautiful reflections with us. In the beginning, you talked about how we pretend to society with fitting and belonging purposes. My question is if Joanna says something about, or if not, if you personally believe that this practice of ours ends up developing or improving in ourselves the ability of pretending to our own consciousness, and thus preventing ourselves from identifying and fighting the inferior traits of our personality.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
yes.
And I don't know if there's an echo here. But it's really interesting. And of course, this is what's brought to us in the book, The Integral Human Being, which who's that role of the integral human being, right? It's Jesus. Jesus came to our lives. We learn from Jesus all the lessons of accepting all that he is in his integral abilities to see no longer a dual world of good, bad, right? Good and evil, and all the two options, but he accepted everything of who we are. And when I say this is because we are in this journey to be Christ-like, and as such, we it's not an easy path to accept when we fail, as Joanna said, right? It's the one of the three biggest fears that we have is to fail, but we will inevitably fail, and we want to so bad to belong that we try to even hide from us by repressing those failures to ourselves and all of it. But to answer your question, this is really all about loving ourselves, and it's a journey that may take many many lives, right? I remember, if I may here, don't laugh, Leo, but the first day of my first class in a spiritual center of inner transformation, I swear to you, we were talking about imperfections, we're talking about qualities in all of it. And I thought to myself, why am I here? I'm already there. And of course, the more you learn, the more you see, boy, what a complete delusion to think that because I'm not a murderer, for example, because I am part of a group that is committed to charity, all the good stuff, that I don't find myself with all the things that I reject in myself. And those are more subtle, but much worse, perhaps, right? Our jealousy, our sense of inferiority, our anger when our egoic constructs are perhaps vulnerable to somebody else's attack, so on and so forth. So this is a journey that takes a long time, but this is also an invitation from Joanna De Angelis for all of us to be brave, to be courageous, and to accept, to learn to accept who we are. I hope I answer your question.
Beautiful answer and beautiful question, beautiful answer. And it's interesting that you said this, right, Marcia? Because the other aha moment is that when I would like to utilize the idea of being a parent, right? Look, being a parent, kids don't ask to come to the world, right? We become a parent, and by providing, by giving, guess what? It's our duty, right? Just because we're
Mhm.
doing it, we're like, oh no. The greatest thing here is to be the best parent we can be, right? And we will fail, right? We will go through, but it just because you're doing it, that doesn't mean you're already there, right? So yeah, it's a
Yes.
beautiful transformation. Great question and great answer. We do have one from online, Daniel, please, if you can post and we'll read. Kirsten, hello, Kirsten. Kirsten says, Marcia, which book would you recommend to someone who wants to know more about what you're talking about? Since the book you mentioned isn't in English yet, I believe yes, and this is one of the questions. Thank you, Kirsten, because you mentioned a book at the beginning because I didn't quite get it. So please elaborate on that a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. I I started my journey learning Joanna D'Angelo. I know you are also a student of Joanna, Kirsten, with existential conflicts. I actually read that book 4 times, and still, if I open for any of the chapters, there's so much to unpack for me specifically. So that was my journey. I started at about halfway through the journey. I believe that, and I was given this very pointed answer to your question. Where should you begin? You should begin with Jesus in our days. As the introduction, because from a psychological series, it is right there. It's almost like a crescendo. Uh, Chapter is built on it, and it doesn't matter because when you look at it's very interesting when you start looking at the content, the table of content. It may not look like that, but it's truly a crescendo. One chapter leads to the other, and one book leads to the other. So Jesus in our days, I think it's beautiful. Another book that I find, it's tiny as well, like the Jesus in our days, is this small. It is a book called Wake Up and Be Happy, which is translated as well into English. I think those are really good ones, but there's so many out there in the series of Joanna D'Angelo that are slowly being available to us in the English language. But thank you for your question.
Oh, sorry. I would like to go back to the three fears that you mentioned, and in specific, the second one, the fear of being rejected.
Yeah.
Is the fear of is rejection in? I would like to let me put this way. I would like to acknowledge that there are rejection. We in certain moments of our lives we do feel rejected because nowadays, especially on the idea of forgiveness, right? We people forgive, but they really separate themselves from us. Or we do that a lot that as well, right? I forgive this person, but I don't want to see this person. So, but in that sense, I do acknowledge that there is. But how much would you say with your studies the feeling that we have of rejection is really true, or is it a projection that we put onto society as well of wanting more of this fit in capabilities?
I think you're spot on, Leo. When I read initially the three biggest fears in her books, right? I immediately thought rejection of being loved, right? That romantic love, eros in this case, where you want to be part of that dual partnership. But the pretty much in most of her books, you will see her talking about exactly what you said. That rejection is, I so want to be part of something larger, to be part of a group, that I go through things that in this case we talked about identity, but it's extended in many other types of behaviors, in many different nuanced approach by John DeAngelis to the topic. But you're right on. It is a need that we are. Why does Joanna calls us the biosocial animals, right? Because we are immortal spirits, right? But when we are inserted in this material world, in this incarnation, current one, we take on this bio. So there is a genetic, there is a, a material biological frame, but also the fact that we are gregarious, social animals that crave for that sense of belonging. And the sense of belonging, as if we were to just, open our minds for just thinking out loud, maybe that's the reason why we're here. Because if we were, as it's in the Spirit's book, if we were to put ourselves in a exile, or praying all day long, in many cultures, and historically speaking, is cloistered nun. For me, for example, life would be too easy. I would ask for forgiveness daily and feel that I have been enlightened. But it is in the conflict with the other that I really test my ability to forgive. So that the biosocial is really what makes us want, crave, desire to be inserted in a larger organization, whatever that may be. And that's what's going to test ourselves, our ability to exercise our individuality without judgment. We're far from it, though.
You would it be possible to say, and I'm extending now, to say that much like fear is an extrapolation of the law of preservation, would that
Yeah,
be an extrapolation of the law of the social law, right? Of us wanting more than we really should, really, because we're creating other issues, right? When this idea that, oh, I need to belong. Wait a minute, do you just want attention? Or I just want attention, right? And I'm saying this to myself, please. That's why I try to clarify at the beginning, but it's just an interesting thing, that when we are this being looking for the attention, we have enough. We just think that we need more, right?
absolutely.
Absolutely.
You're right
You're right
there.
there.
Thanks. So you're now on mute again. Yeah.
All right. And Kirsten says, you mentioned introverts. Does Joanna shares insights about introverts and why some people are extroverts versus introverts?
So, Kirsten, what I read about introverts, extroverts, largely I go back to Jung's, right, what he developed in the early 1920s. He is the person that everything to date that we discuss in terms of personality types goes back to what he created. And what she shares, and there's a lot of her work that talks about that introversion is really something that is allows the journey easier, because introverts prefer, if you will, this is very large statement, but prefer your own world of ideas, right? And be comfortable with yourself. So from that perspective, we could, but it's really a conclusion that I don't have the ability to get to it, but we could extrapolate again, Leo, that introverts may be better equipped into that journey of introversion that we all, and that she brings time and time again, right? The self discovery, the need to look into yourself, to accept yourself, to be courageous. So I would say that uh, it's important for us to understand. It's important for me to understand those functions and personality types, so that we see where is perhaps somebody who's an introvert drives his or her own sense of energy versus the extrovert, and those tendencies will give to a certain type of behavior. But the reality in this particular chapter of this book that she brings quite strong is the fact that introverts suffer, Kirsten, and it's a suffering because society, and again I can only speak of Western society, that's our society at large, punishes the introverts and gratifies, if you will, those who are extroverts. And there are many articles about it. It's quite fascinating if we go into that discussion deeper and deeper.
Very well explained. Thank you. I just wish that we would put in perspective that if all of us were extroverts, right? I don't think we would have a good society. And if we also all were to be all introverts, right, it wouldn't be. So we need to balance people. Okay, so let's treat one another equally, right, and appreciate, as Joanna D'Angelo also says, right, accept others as they are. But thank you for your explanation there. Anyone else? Paula says, a phrase that has become popular to help people with acceptance is, it is what it is. Susan Cain's next book is Bittersweet How Longing and Sorrow Makes Us Whole, which supports qualities, again, like introversion, that are not especially valued in our culture. Thanks for referencing her. I believe that was the book that you mentioned at the beginning. Yes. Anyone else, Daniel? Anyone else here?
Hey, Marcia, thank you so much. Um, I wanted to go back to the title of your presentation, Recovering Our Identity.
Yeah, yeah.
So, the first thing that came to my mind was like when we talk about identity in our society, we are talking about numbers, your ID, our trades. Um, so, Joanna, so based on your study, um, because every day we are suffering influence from the external, and when we're gonna find our true identity, because for example, if you move from one job to another job, or if you get married, or if you have a new friends, or if you move to another country, definitely those influence will impact your identity. When you're gonna find your true identity? I think I may know the answer, but I wanted to throw this back to you and have you elaborate more, since you have been studying very deep, Joanna, and all these psychological um, uh, teachings.
Absolutely. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank
Uh, the true identity is all about your authenticity, right? So be who you are, regardless of what society, organization, whatever you are a part of. But let's think about it. If I'm a woman, right? An old woman at that. I was born in a different country. I speak English with an accent. My culture, all my culture reference, and this is what Joanna talks about. All of what I've experienced will make me, with my own understanding of what the symbols and archetypes, etc., are, my own, because we are a little bit like our own icebergs, right? We there's a little bit um, of our conscious self, but a lot underneath the water that encompasses. This is a Freudian, of course, image of the unconscious, that it's all underneath the surface. But Daniel, when you say will we ever recover or discover, if you will, our identity, I what came to my mind was a quite simple image that Jung brings to us, and maybe it can help all of us understand the journey toward of recovering our identity. And I'm going to put my hands in a triangle, right? So he talks about, if you go from here, and that's my left hand, uh, as the beginning, the zero, when we're just born, and our up to half of the triangle, the apex of the triangle, is the journey of constructing our ego, right? And most people think, oh, ego bad, self good, ego bad. No, our ego is really important so that it can build upon our personality that will survive, if you will, in our society as an incarnated spirit. So in that journey that from here, right? In that journey, I am building what is the most successful part of who I am according to my ego, right? Which means I will create personas, I will use masks, and I will do all of it so that I can meet the demands of external life. So this is a very material experience of our lives. And then Jung brings the second part of the triangle, which is going down, as after the apex, we go through a crisis, right? Usually it can be our midlife crisis. There may be some other types of things that makes us aware that what we thought was who we truly are. It's the apex. I was born, I was educated by my parents, I went to school, I got married, I have a family, I have a professional life, whatever it is, those goals that are material and as such are ephemeral. We reach all of this only to know that yes, they're there, but not enough. Now you need to go downhill toward your true identity and the search for your authentic self. And that comes with humility, and that comes with this journey that Joanna brings over and over again of self discovery. So, will we get to our true authentic self by the end of our lives? Well, maybe not. But Jung brings to us, and it was just interesting because I was listening to a podcast just earlier today about uh, aging and what we do after we retire, for example. And this is this good or bad? Is it a time where we lose our youth, or we lose our ability to be accepted, et cetera, et cetera? And Jung says this is the best part of your life, which is that part of your life that you really focus on authenticity. So, to answer your question, this is upon our process of growth and age in this material life, we become confronted with the need now no longer to be accepted, but to actually to be accepted by ourselves through our own sense of self. I hope it answered your question, Daniel.
So it did answer the question. So thank you. Thank you. Be a good question as well and a good answer. Thank you. Anyone else from the web? Kirsten says, I heard that introverts prefer to listen to themselves than others. And that's one reason why they are that way. Thoughts?
Oh. Oh, Kirsten, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have any thoughts on that. But just for your reference, I am married to an uber introvert, so that made me laugh. So we'll move on to the next, the next question or thoughts. Thank you for that.
I like the Uber analogy, Uber introvert, right? And then don't talk. Yeah. No, that's interesting. And as I'm putting Kirsten on the spot here, an introvert until we throw her, a good conversation, then she talks about it and then she participates. So, and the reason I'm saying this because we all have a little bit of both, right? We all have instance where we feel more at home with certain moments, right? And then than others, and that's I think I would say a development of ourselves in both areas, right? And I think there are studies now that there are actually names that I do not remember, that there's no such a thing of only the introvert and extrovert, actually in between groups, right? And I have Wendell here waving his hand. Perhaps he has the answer for us, and then I'll. Oh, thank you, Daniel. Yes.
Oh, thank you. Daniel's question brought something to my mind, actually. How much of our identity has to do with our past lives and how much is built in this actual life?
Great question, right? And I would say, think in terms of the discussion of the collective unconscious, Wendell. Right? We are part of the collective, and we also bring our collective unconscious. Jonah DeAngelis talks a lot about that. And whenever we're discussing, I don't know, that existential conflicts book, which is a great one. Let's just bring a topic, right? Jealousy, for example, right? And she or guilt, right? Or shame. Let's any topic, and she would talk about first and foremost even the repressed memory of your childhood, right? Things that are very much in our current life, but often she referred to what we were, our past lives. And I think what you bring is that very important. We are a sum of all of our experiences, and we bring our own, I would say, kaleidoscope of experiences, if you will. This is a term that Joanna uses for the collective, not for ourselves, but we bring that richness of experience. But it is up to us to honor those, right? It's up to us to really start to surface, especially as we confront our shadow, our repressed memories, that our repressed judgments, etc. That's when we start to see all those things that perhaps we brought with us and we're not ready yet to confront. But the idea of the integral human being is beautiful. It's the idea of that comes in her book, right? Plenitude, the third book, of the individuated spirit, that individual that embarks, embraces all that we have, and we reach that sense of plenitude.
Beautifully answered, and I'm really excited about this topic because what it incites on us, right? About the finding ourselves, right? Going within. And I think this is one of the beautiful characteristics of Joanna De Angelis, that it's the dive in, right? Yes, we ought to be charitable to one another. We ought to be kind and love one another, but um, those are definitely consequences, and it will be beautiful consequences, more effective if we're loving ourselves, if we're being charitable to ourselves, right? So, Marcia, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts that you bring this reminder to ourselves, because the worst thing is when we lose ourselves, and we can find ourselves, right? For those moments that many of us have been through, that we're asking, who am I, right? Not directly. Sometimes we just we're hitting our heads, and we don't remember to even ask the question. But thank you for this beautiful reminder, and get us closer to Joanna De Angelis, and reminding us as well of much that we have to study as well. So thank you, and we hope to see you soon again, sooner than we would have been waiting, to give continuation to this work as well. So thank you. Marcel, if is it, would you like to say for us our final prayer? And then as you say our final prayer, I would like to invite everyone, because we'll give continuation on our side here with the passes as well. So please.
Thank you. Thank you for the. And perhaps if we, as we come to the end of our time together, my time together with you, if you're comfortable, if you close our eyes and invite all the goodness that exists inside of us in this beautiful journey toward our own acceptance, toward our own sense of self, our authentic self, our identity. May we be open. May we meet with the divine, the sacred within. May we be courageous enough to embark in this path of self-discovery with love, with care, with acceptance of who we are, first and foremost, but also welcoming incredible diversity that exists right now, today, in our material lives, as well as in this beautiful tapestry of all the spirits. Thank you, dear Lord. We ask that all of us here present, listening to this conversation, our family members, all be blessed. May we have a wonderful night. So be it.